So I love thinking of fear as not necessarily that we shouldn't explore it or we shouldn't do it, the thing that we fear, but using it to dig deeper of, okay, well, why am I thinking that? What am I scared of if I let go of the dieting? And for me, and for so many of the women I work with, it's rebuilding that sense of trust within yourself and your own body and your own decisions that allows you to let go a little bit more and a little bit more of that rigid control of needing to stick to something to control our weight in our body. Food for me, for example, was always a coping mechanism, whether that was an emotional need or fulfilling, an unhappiness within your feeling of void. And so for me now, when I get cravings or I'm sitting on the couch at 7 p.m. and I'm like, ooh, I want something sweet or I want some ice cream. It's like, that's my signal to myself to say, hey, what else is going on here? Are you feeling some sort of emotional need? Are you bored? Are you overwhelmed? Are you stressed? Like looking deeper into that. So to me, eating normally means letting food, letting food be nourishment and be satisfying to you. So like enjoying it, but not letting it be something that dominates your life every waking moment. And I think for everyone's path, it's so different. So someone might be so obsessed right now and just letting go a little bit might feel like eating normally for them at the time. And then it sort of progresses and evolves as you let go and more, and again, build that trust with yourself.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. And today our topic is that loathsome word, diets. As the joke goes, the reason they're called diets is because they make you want to die. But most of us have tried them. Most of us have lost a few pounds on them, though it always seems to come back. Given that no woman is ever truly satisfied with her weight, we feel doomed to diet. We can never eat as much as we want. We always have to watch what we put in our mouths. But our guest for today, Jenn Hand, doesn't agree. Jenn is a speaker, writer, and holistic health advocate who helps women transform their relationship to food by showing them how to fall in love with their body again and eat normally. She inspires over 3,300 women each week with her flagship program, the Normal Eaters Club. And you can find her writing at the Huffington Post, Mind, Body, Green, and Tiny Buddha, among others. Welcome, Jenn.
Thanks, Amy. And I love your intro of dieting makes you feel like you want to die, because I totally agree.
So I want to know your story. You're no stranger to dieting. You've done it and you changed your mind about it.
Yes. So I have done literally every diet ever. And I really struggled with my weight and body image and food, trying to diet, starting over every other day, and then binging and overeating and not being able to stop. So it was always my knee-jerk reaction when I would binge or overeat to be like, I got to diet again. I got to make up for it. I got to lose the weight. And it wasn't an instant decision of, okay, diets don't work, I'm done. It was sort of a gradual process where my body rebelled and was like, I don't want this. I want something else, because the diets got shorter and shorter and shorter over the years. It was like, in the beginning I could do 6 months or even longer. And then as I grew and evolved and changed and my body grew and changed, it was like they got shorter and shorter. And I remember my last diet was Weight Watchers, and it lasted 2 days, and I felt like I was living in this just point obsession and counting and thinking about it all day, and how do I make up for this, and how do I get extra points? So that was sort of the nail in the coffin of like, right, this really isn't for me. And that's kind of what was that final, diets really don't work.
Yeah. But see, so I'm thinking, of course, well, if you've tried all the diets, then surely one must work. There's so much money going into promoting these diets. Oprah promotes Weight Watchers. They say it's a lifestyle.
Yeah. And it made me so sad when Oprah promoted that. And I see their effort and their messaging of, okay, it's a lifestyle now and it's not necessarily a diet, which I think speaks to the fact that more and more diet and weight loss related programs are actually realizing, yeah, diets don't really work for the long haul. So if you think about what works, it's looking at it from the big picture perspective. So yeah, a diet might work for 10 days or for 30 days or 2 months or however long you can last. But I think what happens is we get to the end and then it's like, well, now what? If we use food to eat emotionally, or we use food when we're bored or when we're stressed or overwhelmed, it's like we still have that in us. And at the end, we get to the diet, we don't have a focus anymore. And it's like, oh, well, here I am. I'm still the same person. And then we feel like a failure and it's our fault. So it's this sort of whole cycle that we get on, we have success, then at some point we get off and we feel like a failure, and so on and on it goes.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the statistics on the Biggest Loser. You know, they lose all this extreme weight, and then you look at them so many years later, they've packed it all again, and even worse, their metabolisms are a lot slower than they were because of all the diet. But this kind of is begging a question. We're going on those diets to maintain a healthy weight. If we give up diets, how can we maintain that healthy weight?
And that's like the $1 million question, right? Because why are we dieting in the first place? Because we're terrified to not stick to something, to not have a plan, to not have a focus. And so there is every single person's fear when they're like, maybe dieting doesn't work. Is there another way? I mean, that is absolutely what we all think when we start. Mm-hmm. So I love thinking of fear as not necessarily that we shouldn't explore it or we shouldn't do it, the thing that we fear, but using it to dig deeper of, okay, well, why am I thinking that? What am I scared of if I let go of the dieting? And for me, and for so many of the women I work with, it's rebuilding that sense of trust within yourself and your own body and your own decisions that allows you to let go a little bit more and a little bit more of that rigid control of needing to stick to something to control our weight in our body.
Yeah, because so much of weight loss is, there's a lovely sense of when you can control what you eat, there's actually a sense of power. This is kind of how you get eating disorders like anorexia too. You know, it's, I can't control anything else in my life. Everything else is chaos, but my food is the one thing I can control.
Yeah, and I love thinking of it as sort of a four-pronged journey. Like, it's not just physical, because when we're dieting, we're solely focused on calories in, calories out, or points in, points out. And we're not just physical beings. You know, we're mental, we have an emotional side, we have a spiritual side. So it's like we have to take all that into account when we're looking at food, because it's not just that, right, kale smoothie in, we're fine. It's like what else factors into feeling satisfied, feeling nourished, feeling whole and holistic and healthy in our own lives.
That's difficult stuff. And one of the things that struck me about what you said is learning to trust ourselves again. I'm not sure I know anyone, aside from men, I know a lot of men who trust themselves around food, who can walk past a buffet and see all the options and trust themselves to pick just what they need and no more. How in the world could we trust ourselves, given our past experience, given that you know, when we let ourselves do what we wanted, we overate, we gained weight?
Yeah. And so I love this question because it's something we all face on this journey, that letting go of the control, tying so closely into the trust. And if you look at it from the perspective of when we're dieting, when we're being rigid, when we're adhering to something, that's one experience. And so when we go off, we go to the other extreme of, oh, screw it, I'll do whatever I want, I'm allowing whatever. So our experience of allowing and permission and honoring our bodies is like that extreme. So it's almost like we have to learn a new set point of being in balance, listening to our bodies isn't dieting, but it's also not that, oh, screw it, you know, I've blown it, I'm just going to eat all day, eat ice cream all day. So it's sort of finding this new balance, this new set point where we learn what it means to listen to our bodies. And so there is that fear of, oh, well, if I let go of dieting, am I just going to gain 100 pounds? Am I just going to spiral off the rails? And it's not a one and done. It's like you sort of inch out of your comfort zone a little bit, and maybe you have pasta at night when you haven't had pasta in months. And you're like, okay, I survived. I'm okay. And you sort of push that boundary a little more and more and more. And it's like that fuels the confidence in yourself, in your choices, and allows you to deepen that trust.
What's interesting, though, is that we hear all the time that, you know, the secret to maintaining a healthy weight is tracking, you know, keeping a food diary. You know, there's a big market in calorie tracking. You know, you've got your Fitbits, you've got your phone apps, and these things are promising us that if we are hyper vigilant about what we put in our mouths, that is the only way we're going to make sure that we don't make unhealthy food choices. So I want to know a little bit more about this. What is it then that is going to stop us when we don't have that accountability from going too far the other way?
Yeah, so I love the idea of starting where you are. So if you're a person who is tracking your food or wearing a Fitbit or doing some sort of calorie counting, usually you get to a point where it feels like it's a lot, like it's maybe a little bit more of a prison than you intended it to, or it feels like restrictive and you want to kind of break out of that a little bit. And it's like letting go a little bit at a time. So maybe it's, okay, you're tracking your calories every single day for 7 days. Maybe you do it just weekdays. And then that's your, like, kind of breaking the barrier a little bit. So it's, because we don't get from where we are to being like, yep, I'm going to listen to my body. Life is good. I trust myself. It's sort of that step by step by step of finding a little bit more freedom where you are. And sometimes more structure and more of a guideline helps people. And that's how I started. I started the freedom within the guidelines, within some structure. And then I broke out of that a little bit more, let go of some more food rules. So it's seeing it not as like a one-time thing and you're there, of more as that baby step process of, okay, how can I break free a little bit? How can I find a little bit more freedom within where I am that maybe feels a little bit uncomfortable, but I know it's good for me to grow and kind of and test the water, so to speak, like dipping your toes in the pool before you jump in kind of thing.
Yeah, so I want to know a little bit about what the end goal is here. So I assume the end goal of this is to be able to maintain a healthy weight without being obsessed about food. What does it feel like? You've got a normal eaters club. What does it feel like to eat normally?
So I love this question. And to speak to that first piece of the end goal, it's so counterintuitive to what we're taught, to how we operate in society, of like, set a goal, you get it, yay, done. But the process of eating normally and the process of letting go of dieting and learning how we use food is a lifelong path. That's not to say you can never feel that sense of freedom and letting go of the obsession, but it's like, food for me, for example, was always a coping mechanism, whether that was an emotional need or fulfilling, an unhappiness within your feeling of void. And so for me now, when I get cravings or I'm sitting on the couch at 7 p.m. and I'm like, ooh, I want something sweet, or I want some ice cream, it's like, that's my signal to myself to say, hey, what else is going on here? Are you feeling some sort of emotional need? Are you bored? Are you overwhelmed? Are you stressed? Like, looking deeper into that. So to me, eating normally means letting food, letting food be nourishment and be satisfying to you. So like enjoying it, but not letting it be something that dominates your life every waking moment. And I think for everyone's path, it's so different. So someone might be so obsessed right now, and just letting go a little bit might feel like eating normally for them at the time. And then it sort of progresses and evolves as you let go and more, and again, build that trust with yourself.
So one of the things that you have to let go of, and this to me, I think would be the most difficult bit, is we all have this myth, the before and the after pictures, this complete transformation where we've got our normal bodies and we're going to have that body we want. And so that's what the diets are selling us. They're selling us this dream of finally looking the way we've always wanted to look. And one of the challenges of giving up the diet is giving up that dream of having that dramatic transformation and emerging with the body you've always wanted. So how does this work with our relationships with our bodies and how we feel about how we look?
Oh, it's so closely tied together. It's like, it's hard to separate when we're dieting and how we feel about ourselves, because I think they're so closely tied together. And honestly, when the myth of the before and after, one of my favorite blog posts I ever did was the myth of the before and after, because I did, 10 years or 15 years worth of pictures. And even within the same year, there's a before and after. And then next year I'm in the before, and next year I'm in the after. It's like this whole ebb and flow of my own weight gain and loss, to speak to the point that there's no after period, you're done, check the box. It's like, you understand that a healthy relationship, just like your relationship with your significant other or your child or your best friend or your sister, it's always evolving. You never like, especially, intimate relationships are a great example. It's not like, okay, period, done. I'm done working on my relationship with my significant other. It's sort of seeing that with our food and with our bodies. It's like, right, our love for ourselves can always get deeper, and we can always find deeper acceptance. So the trick is, which is so hard in our society, is to sort of be okay with where you are, and also leaving room for change, because we will always be changing. And it's not getting locked into this notion that we have to be done. And oh my gosh, for me, like that was the hardest thing I had to learn. Like I wanted to be done. Like just, I don't want to think about food anymore. But it's when I embraced it and pulled it a little bit closer and said, I need to look deeper at this because it is here. I am eating every single day forever. So I have to look at my relationship with food and my body.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask one more important question especially for people who've been struggling with their weight for a long time. And that's how we cope with other people, because the doctors say you need to be on a diet. Roxane Gay had this incredible story where she says that strangers actually watch her eat and offer these unsolicited comments like, you should be eating that with your weight. And, she can't eat in public now. So how do we cope with people saying, you'd better not go off a diet. You need a diet. You're going to wreck your health if you go off on a diet.
Yeah, this is so hard because sometimes people just feel like I'm just going to give them unsolicited advice. I'm really being helpful. I'm acting like a concerned relative or friend. And those comments can be really hurtful and really triggering. And I, first of all, think that our own example, like letting our actions speak for themselves. I mean, when I struggled over the years, there's so many people made comments like, you should do this, you should do that. And, oh, try this. I just tried it. I lost 30 pounds. And it was a reminder to go back inside with myself and ask myself, okay, is that something that I want to do? Is that something that works for me? And I had reached the point where it didn't. And so I expressed that or didn't express that, depending on the person. But strengthening your own belief in your path and really anchoring in the knowing that you know what's best for you. And dieting might work in the short term, but it always leads to weight gain and that feeling of being a failure and like it's our fault. And so when we pick another alternative route, of course, it's going against the grain. People have opinions. People are like, you're not losing weight. That doesn't work. But it's like, ask me in 5 years, in a year for the long term, if it works. Because that person, I have so many women who say, my friend's back on Weight Watchers, my friend's back in Slimming World, my friend's back doing the keto diet. It's like, and they've done it 50 times. And so while they're working on their own journey of learning to find their normal around food and accept their bodies, their friend has been back and forth on Weight Watchers or whatever diet 6 times. So it's like, it's so hard to look at the big picture, but reminding ourselves constantly that that's where the real success lies.
Yeah, the long term. So you have something to help support women on that journey. It's called the Normal Eaters Club. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I began it actually because it was what I wanted when I struggled. Like I remember falling asleep at night and just being really upset and crying and thinking I just wanted to be normal. Like I didn't want to obsess all day about my body and my weight. And I'm like, there's starving kids in Africa. Like I just want to stop thinking about my body. There's more important things in the world. I just want to be normal. And so that's sort of the catalyst for the name. And really it's a community of women who are struggling and all at different points in their journey. Some have let go of dieting, but are really struggling with the concept of weight and choosing for health and not fixating on weight loss. Others are at the very beginning and struggling to really know that diets don't work. So it's sort of a step-by-step guide. It's a membership site. So there's lessons, there's coaching every month, there's a Facebook group. So it's a sort of a big community of women all working towards their own normalcy around food.
Fantastic. And for those of you watching, if you want to learn about the Normal Eaters Club and Jenn's personalized coaching, we've got a link for you. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/Jenn. That's yourbrilliance.org/JENN. We're coming to an end. Thank you, Jenn, for coming onto the show and talking about this. And I wanted to know if there was any last message you'd like to leave our viewers with.
I would just love to say that it takes courage to let go of dieting because so many people in this world are thinking of that as a solution. So if you have reached that point, if you are feeling like, you're the only one, I promise you you're not, but knowing it takes courage and bravery to look at some of the emotional stuff and some of the mental stuff around food. So keep going. I promise you it's worth it.
Fantastic. And thank you out there for watching. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.